Hey, Southeast Missouri sports fans. Enjoy the show and want to take it on the go? You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. Tune in as they air by searching SEMO Sports Zone wherever you may be listening. Welcome to SEMO Sports Zone presented by A-Corp Sports. You're listening to this on March 13th. And Josh, it's kind of a sad day to be a Southeast Missouri basketball fan, isn't it?
It is. It sure is.
Coming into this, we had four teams that we kind of expected to, make a little bit of noise. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but we definitely didn't expect, three of those teams to lose in this first round. True. I mean, we kind of thought, Woodland was going up against Principia. That was going to be kind of a big test. We thought maybe Woodland might, they had about a week to cook on kind of like strategies, but I think size is what really did Woodland in.
Yeah, it was just a total mismatch, top to bottom. Woodland's guards were really good. They got to the line a lot, but just the size of Principia was just too much.
Yeah, and we got to consider, too, that, Principia, they played against Sykeston and beat Sykeston. So we use Sykeston kind of as a measuring stick of, who's good in the area. We usually compare them to Sykeston. And, I think Woodland, for, being Class 3 and what they've done, nothing to hang your head about. Obviously, you're going to be playing against Thayer. We'll talk about what happened to Thayer a little bit later. But, I think as a whole, Woodland's season, I think it was a pretty good season for them.
It was unexpected. No one at the beginning of the year probably really thought Woodland would have made it.
And, sorry to interrupt you, but I just think, Woodland was pretty hot for most of the year too. And then they had that instance where they kind of, got punched in the mouth by Puxco, lost that game in the Sauter County final, and then, kind of had to build back up. And I feel like they finally built themselves back up. And just to be met with Principias, that's a tough test to go up against.
It is, but, unfortunately for KC Legacy, Principia is probably going to win it all.
Honestly, yeah, they look like a different beast compared to everybody else that's, in Class 3. So, and we saw KC Legacy play. We didn't know anything about them when we first started, getting into it. It's just, it's kind of just a weirdo name. Obviously a Kansas City team, but we didn't know anything about it. And I didn't expect them to beat Thayer either.
It was one of those I didn't know much about them. They're really athletic. They have one kid that can shoot the ball really well. They're, they seem to always make it the Final Four and then always lose the semifinal game. Yeah. And it's just something, it's their kryptonite or I don't know.
And now they get to go up against Woodland. And I feel like that's a much better matchup than obviously Principia and Woodland had to face.
Yeah, I think it can go either way. I'd probably slightly favor Thayer just because they're a little bit more physical. Mm-hmm. And, they've been there before, so they're not shell-shocked, I guess.
How do you think a lot of teams, do you think they dealt with the shell shock? That was a big, motivating factor for why they played? They're kind of maybe not what we expect their style to be.
I mean, there's a lot of factors, just the sight lines, you're playing in a big arena. So instead of having a wall 10 feet from the back of the bucket.
Yeah, you got bleachers behind you and seats that kind of, I'm not going to say looks like a void when you're staring at it, but, bright lights, bright court.
Yeah, and it's hard to play physical. Usually, they get the best officials, but usually it's called a lot tighter than it would be back home.
Mm-hmm. You think do you really think that was one of the factors that kind of made some of these games though?
Maybe the Puxco-Kenton game, but I didn't really give Woodland much of a chance in this game.
No. So, this is obviously going to rise the debate up again of just where private schools stand in kind of this Southeast Missouri, because this always kind of seems to happen is that, you have a Southeast Missouri team that kind of shows up and shows out for most of the year and they go up against a private school and, it's kind of the basketball everyman in our office. What's kind of your take on that?
There is definitely a big advantage of private schools and, Kansas City and St. Louis public schools. There's an advantage there too. They have the championship factor, but, it doesn't always work. My suggestion would be go to 4 public school classes and 2 private school classes to still have the 6. And I think it would even it out a little bit and make, the general public happy.
Do you think there's enough private schools to make 2 classes though?
For sure, 1, 2, maybe. Like, I don't know how big a lot of the size, like, you take, like, Valley Catholic, a smaller private school, St. Vincent.
Sure.
But you can't really compare them with, like, Chaminade, Christian Brothers College, those schools, just because they're way bigger.
Yeah, I don't have a statistic on me, like, 1-to-1, but I think overall, like, as many titles as private schools have taken, I think it's only, like, 21% of state titles, so I can see why people are upset. When this happens, when you have a great season like this and you go up against just a buzzsaw team that you really just feel like you don't have a chance against. And not to say that Woodland didn't play them well, they did. I think for what that game was. But, I can see why people would be upset that they feel like private schools just have that advantage over them.
They do. I mean, they really do. It's unfortunate, but it's just, they're playing by the rules that they're given, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like they're necessarily cheating or anything. They're playing by the rules that Mich has set, and a lot of people don't like it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do about it at that point? And to continue on with Principia, I mean, let's talk about Portageville. Congratulations to the Portageville girls for getting to the Final Four for the first time. It's just unfortunate you had to go up against Principia.
Yeah, great season for them. I believe this is their first time there. They had a pretty good run. They beat a good Woodland team, and then I don't remember exactly who they played in the quarterfinal, but they won pretty handily, and great job for them getting there, and they have a shot to play for third tomorrow.
And do you think so? We kind of saw a little bit of like who they're going to go up against. Do you think that's more of a comparative, team matchup at that point?
Lone Jack, I don't know. I think Fairgrove is one of the last 2, and they're going to go for a 3-peat, and I think they'll probably beat Principia. I think they're that good. I think it'll be more manageable, but I don't know if Portageville will win that game or not.
Yeah, and I mean that's just where we're at. Like with this tournament too, is like you think you can predict scores and things like that, but I feel like this has kind of been, you can kind of determine some outcomes of some games, but I think for the most part you kind of have to just sit back and say they're going to play the game, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
and I think that's completely evident with Puxco and Canton, because that was not the game I was expecting it to be.
It was a really great first half. Really, the difference was the second half. Canton, they just controlled the boards. It was like 50-15 difference on the boards, second chance points, and then Preston, the 6'8" kid, I don't remember his last
number 23.
name. He just dominated. He had like 24 points, 14 rebounds, something like that.
Yeah.
They just turned it up when it mattered.
Yeah, no, played out of his mind, and I think that's, that was the big difference. Like, we kind of looked at the team last week and kind of, you can gauge, because like record-wise and points per game-wise, Canton and Puxco stacked up really well. I think it was just that 6'8", like that's the number that stuck out to me. That's like, how are they going to deal with that? Dave and I talked about it, and he said that he thought the speed of Landon Burchard would cause him some issues, especially if like you're dribbling high, things like that, but I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, well, Burchard, I thought, had a pretty good game. He shot the ball well. It's just sometimes teams are just better, and Canton tonight were just the better team. Just the size, Puxco really doesn't have the size of Canton, and it hurt them tonight.
Yeah, and I think, for Puxico at this point, nothing to hang your head about, obviously. You've had a great season. Getting the chance to even play for third, I think that's something a lot of teams, especially Class 2, would, they'd kill for.
Yeah, like every team in Southeast Missouri wants to be where Puxico's at, despite, not winning at all. To be there is just an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, and I think what you take away from this season is just like what impact you had on the surrounding area, because I feel like we get to see one of the most defensive teams that we've seen in a long time. Man, they just played every backcourt like a straitjacket, and and they did in this game too. You saw flashes of it where it's just like, okay, but Canton just like, no, they just, when they got in the paint, they were just unstoppable.
They were, and they were up and down. Like Puxico likes to get up and down, but they can do it just as well. And they got a lot of transition points. That's when the lead started to build up, and Puxico, they'd have a little run, and then Canton would answer right back.
Yeah, it always seemed like as soon as Puxico got like that 2 points that would kind of push them like beyond that like 12-point separation. Canton just had an opportunity just to put it right back, and it just kind of felt so 1-for-1, especially towards the end of that game. Talking about like who Canton's going to have to play tomorrow. We just watched Eugene take down Lincoln. I think Eugene was a different animal, and we just weren't aware of it until now.
They are good. They've been ranked number 1 pretty well all year in Class 2, and they beat a lot of like Class 5 teams. They beat Hartville to get there, who is historically a great program. I think Canton might be in trouble tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say so. Just you're going to have to deal with, size was a benefit for Canton in the game against Puxco. I don't feel like that's going to be as much of a benefit against Eugene. And, their physicality, what I've seen them do with their 3-point shooting, they just look like peak form for Class 2.
Very good team. If you're shooting threes, that adds up quick, and they were shooting it well. And Canton, they're just going to have to rebound the ball well, take care of it, that even have a chance, I think.
And just to kind of look ahead, St. Vincent plays on the 14th. Where do you think that's going to be? Like, how do you think St. Vincent's going to do?
I think they should do well. I'm not too sure about Tipton. That's who they're going to play. I think I've seen them in the Final Four a lot over the last few years, and I know for sure I've seen Skyline, who's in the other game against Norwood. Mm-hmm. I think St. Vincent could definitely beat Tipton, but I'm not too sure about Skyline. So I'll say they should at least be playing for the championship.
Right. And, for Class 1 boys, we talked about kind of last week, Chadwick and Risco, that was probably like the state final to most people. Do you think Chadwick's going to have any issue just kind of walking towards that title at this point?
If Clayton Garrison did what he did against Risco, I think they got it.
Yeah. All right. This is just a quick update from Columbia. We're sitting in the hotel room right now, just finished up a full day of broadcast. But thank you for listening to the SEMO Sports Zone. Thank you, Josh, for being a part of it.
Thank you. Hopefully it went okay and I didn't totally ruin it.
No, not at all. All right. This has been the SEMO Sports Zone. Thanks for listening.